Moving on to superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Birding. At this time, I would like to ask Roger Martin to cover the items listed under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Birding and members of the board, I have two items for your consideration this evening under Personnel Professional. Item number one, unpaid leaves of absence, letter A. And item two, employment. Letter A is extracurriculars for the current school year, and letter B is a substitute teacher for the current school year. That concludes the items I have for your consideration this evening under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the recommendations.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes.
Mr. Beckley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Motion passes.
This time, I'd like to ask Joe Penny to cover the items listed under Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Birding, members of the board, I have the following items for your consideration this evening under personnel support. Under item number one, resignations, letters A through C. Under item number two, leaves of absence, letters A through E. Under item number three, employment, letters A through C. Under item number four, correction, letter A. This concludes the items I have for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hare?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Mr. Beckley?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Motion passes.